Hello, everybody. We are talking about lances and how to set them up for success in the various types of missions in Battletech. Now, for those of you new to the game, a lance is a combination of your mech warriors, which you can find in your barracks, and there's different skills, paired with your actual mechs, which you can find in your mech bay, and the way you customize those mechs. And so the combination of your mech warriors in your mechs, there are 4 mech warriors, 4 mechs, that is your lance of 4. So one of the challenges and one of the great things about Battletech in this universe is that you have what I like to think of as infinite customization. Your different mechs, they're different variants, you have different hardpoints, you can swap in and out weapons per your playstyle. Some people like to play all sniping lance, where you're max range and you just keep pounding them from a distance. Some of them like to brawl and get in there and actually use melee, use death from above, and things like that. And the great thing about Battletech is you can do all that. You can play it any way you want to. And you should. Have fun with it. That's what the game's made for. However, with that being said, there are some things that you want to think about and some options that you want to consider that you can do, especially before you deploy. In this video, it will be a 2-part section. I'm going to focus on the procedural missions and what I would recommend that you think through, right? You play it how you want to play it, obviously, but some things that you want to think through and options that you might want to consider that you have in the procedural missions. I will create a video later talking about priority missions, but that will contain spoilers and it'll be a little more complex, so I'm going to save that for another video. So when we think about procedural missions, I like to think of them or break them into 2 types, right? One type is you have to eliminate all the enemies on the map to successfully complete the mission. So most notably, and the one that I love to play, is Battle. In Battle, you have to eliminate all the enemy mechs or tanks. That's your priority target, and any reinforcements that come into play. And it seems like they always have reinforcements coming into play. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. You're going to have to eliminate everyone on the board there. Now, I think capture the base is similar, although I'm not sure if once they land, your dropship lands and they can leave. I've always eliminated all the mechs to complete, or all the enemies to complete those missions. The other type of mission I would call is you don't have to eliminate all the enemies on the map. So that could be destroy the base, where if you destroy the base you can then exfil. Or, destroy the convoy, recovery, those types of missions. You don't have to eliminate all the mechs on the map, or all the enemies on the map. And that's a really important distinction because you can apply different strategies, right? If you're in a battle and you want that salvage and you want the bonus rep or the full C-bill payment, you're going to want to bring mechs and have things, like lasers, that you won't run out of ammo, right? Because if you bring a limited amount of ballistics and missiles and you run out, and you don't have anything else to kill the remaining mechs or the reinforcing mechs, you're going to be in deep trouble, and you're probably going to have to withdraw and not get the full bonus. Where the other one, you might roll in a little bit lighter, a little bit more mobile, and do a hit and run. If you're looking to farm C-bills and you don't care about salvage on a recovery mission, you could hypothetically bring a few lights, run in, get it, run out, and be done, and get your C-bills. Now, you have to be cognizant of turrets and the enemy, and if you get legged or something bad happens, just a poor roll of the dice, and you lose a pilot just because you're in an undefended or light mech. That's a risk you have to be willing to take. Now, what we're going to do here is take on this assassinate mission. We're not actually going to play it. It is 4.5 stars at Mechter, which tends to run with a lot of assaults, so we're going to fly there real quick. But as we fly there, right, having that context will be very important. Now, one of the things that I would recommend when you think about putting your lance together before you deploy is really pairing your mech warrior skills with the right mech. Now, any combination can work, right? There's no really right or wrong answer. But there are things you want to think about. So one example would be you might have a mech warrior that has breaching shot. So they're double skilled or double talented in the gunnery skill. Maybe you have a max level or they have very high gunnery and they have breaching shot. Well, with something that has breaching shot, you're going to want to think about putting it in a mech that's going to have a high damage option. So if you're putting it in a mech with just a bunch of medium lasers, that still works, but breaching shot's going to be lost because it's only going to go through for one of your weapons that happens to be a medium laser. So I'd recommend putting it in a mech that has a large laser, a PPC, an AC-20, something that does, or packs a big punch. So then when you do go against a mech that's either in cover or guarded, that breaching shot for that PPC is going to work, right? It's gonna do the full damage there. So something to consider. All right, we are going to. And one thing I like to do is look for Ronins, guys, and you always check your store. This is just an aside, because there is some lost tech. It's normally found on former Star League presence planets, and yep, and it has like a 1% or less than 1% chance of dropping. So always, in my opinion, always check the hiring hall and the store before you deploy. So I just wanted to pull this up so I can visually show you a few things, right? So we want to pair our mech warriors with our mechs to the best of our ability and our playstyle. So for me personally, what I like to do is I like to run a tank. So I have a tank king crab. I call him king crab melee. And what this king crab has is almost maxed armor. It's a little bit less, and that's just because I wanted to use the full tonnage and slip in a medium laser, right? But it's basically maxed out on armor. And what you can see here is it has a cockpit mod, so we can take more injuries, and then we have arm mods to do melee damage, and then we also have leg mods to do DFA damage. So we reduce DFA damage, and then we output more DFA, and that's death from above. So I don't highly recommend death from above usually, but this death from above King Crab I think does 230, 240 damage. Sometimes I need to take out an assault, and I'm going to DFA to do that 200, 230 damage, and this particular King Crab I went with Flamers. Again, I did that mainly to overheat and cause internal damage. So this mech is our tank mech, and it is designed to take damage and punch enemy mechs. It has a large laser, some medium lasers, and some LRM ammo, so it can still do damage from any distance. But again, its bread and butter is getting in doing melee damage or DFA damage and then absorbing damage. So for a mech like this, right, that I've designed, I want to bring one of my two tanks. So here I have two tanks, and the way I designed my tanks, I obviously provided bulwark, then I leveled up evasive movement, then I leveled up juggernaut. Now again, this is a successful melee attacks, knock your target back one initiative phase, right? So the juggernaut is designed, skill is designed to be put in a mech where you're going to entertain using melee, right? So this is a nice combination because we have, tank, melee, mech warrior in a mech purely designed to do melee damage and absorb damage. And here I have two tanks. I leveled them up the same way, where they have evasive movement so they can get an extra charge for movement actions. They have bulwark so they can sit there and absorb damage if need be, 50% damage reduction. And juggernaut, where if you do melee, you successfully hit your target, you push them back one initiative phase. So that's a combination that I really like and I would recommend you consider. Now, the other type of mech, and I don't want to do any spoilers here, would be a long range mech, a sniper mech. So I'm going, once I get 4 king crabs, I'm going to run with 4 king crabs because I love king crabs. This is a long range sniper mech, and the way you know he's a sniper mech is it has 2 AC-5s, which is very long range, LRM 20. Now it has a few medium and a large laser. So this is designed to shoot from a distance, relatively heat efficient, in my opinion, and it can output a lot of damage from a distance. But if you look at the armor rating, it's 640 less. So comparatively to our tank melee crab, our ranged crab is, not designed to take that much damage. So if I'm at range, right, and you see some of these moves do a lot of damage, like this large laser does 50 damage, right, I'm going to want to put in someone with high gunnery to ensure they hit. Now my mech warriors, I've kept them alive and they're all maxed out, but when you're leveling it, this is something to think about. You might have someone that has higher gunnery. I would put them in your sniper or long range mech. You're going to want those hit percentages to be as high as possible on your mech that's going to deal damage. This is what we call a DPS, damage per second, or damage dealing mech. That is what it's designed for. It can still take a hit because it's an assault, but quite frankly it can't take nearly as many hits as our tank. Now, for this mech that has, a lot of variability and a lot of weapons on it, I personally like to put in a gunnery spec mech warrior. So that's multi-target and breaching shot. So a single weapon ignores cover. Now if I'm going to do breaching shot and I'm running hot and I'm looking for a kill, I'm probably going to just put on my large laser and hit it with that. So I guarantee that large laser receives a breaching shot bonus, right? Other than that, when I'm hitting, I think it goes, I have to double check, so please post if you know definitively. I think breaching shot is applied to the first weapon that hits, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something that you want to think about. And then in this case I have sensor lock because it's ranged. Now what I would actually do here, and that's good, right? But the one thing you want to consider is that if you're sensor locking, you're not going to be able to fire. So what I would actually do here is bring Shadowcoast, my main character, who is purely spec'd for damage dealing and evasion. So he's multi-targeted, he has evasive movement, so he can build an extra charge whenever we have movement, and he has breaching shot. Now the reason I wouldn't necessarily consider glitch is that I don't want to be in a situation with my damage dealing mech where I would have to use sensor lock and lose my ability to then shoot. So in this case I would probably put Shadowcoast over glitch. Now these are my two gunnery focused or breaching shot focused characters or mech warriors in the game, right? Now, another thing you want to consider here, which I'll just briefly touch on, is high-spirited and low-spirited. If they are high-spirited, precision shot and vigilance cost 10 morale versus 25. That's a huge benefit. So one thing you want to consider, if you think you're taking on a tough mission and you're going to have to use a lot of precision strikes or vigilance, make sure that you're bringing a mech warrior that's high-spirited. Also, you can have low-spirited. So the cost for abilities for Riptide right now goes up, so it's more than 25. I haven't actually run with a low-spirited mech warrior. I kind of wait until it fades off before I utilize them. Although I'm trying to think, that might not be true. Maybe, I'm pretty sure I've probably run with one or two before, but I've never really noticed what the morale cost is. but it's 10 for high spirited. So that's something you might want to consider, stacking a bunch of high spirited mech warriors in your lance, especially if it's going to be a difficult mission, or if it's a mission where you're looking to salvage your farm, right? So that's something that we'll talk about in a second. So right here, really what we're discussing is pairing mech warrior skills with your mech. Some of them probably are going to synergize better than others. There's no right or wrong answer. Play the way you want to play. Definitely. I mean, that's the beauty of the game. But I do think that it's a good tip to think about that. If you have mechs that are focused on damage, make sure you have high gunnery and or high tactics. If you have a mech that's going to be more brawling, getting in there, taking damage, dishing damage at close range, think more about having piloting and guts. Right now, I'll refer you to my pilot skills ability video, which I'd recommend you watch if you're interested in learning, how to spec your mech warriors and what I think makes sense. Now, one thing to note late game that I have been using a lot of is my master tactician. So I added Mockingbird, which is a Ronin. It's pretty cool. It's a unique character. I'm trying to collect more of them. And Riptide, which was just my first random hire. I both maxed out master tactician for both of them. And this is really important when you think about later game and when you have assaults, because your assaults are going to be in that first initiative phase, which is last, so 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you look at this, you see that these two are in the first initiative phase for a king crab. We're going to bring in another king crab, and just so you guys can see, this king crab is focused on short range, right? So it's closer up, dealing damage, and accordingly I have increased the armor to make sure it can take more hits. Now if I put Mockingbird in here, all of a sudden you see she's moved up in initiative phase, right? One thing I always recommend is unless you think you can do it with 3 mechs and or 1 mech where you're just running in to recover something and running out, I always recommend that you bring 3 mechs. Or excuse me, at least 3 mechs, but all 4 mechs, because you don't know what you're going to encounter, and you're going to want that variability. I've actually never not run with a full complement or a full lance. That's kind of something interesting that we can explore after we finish all the priority missions. Alright, so here, that's one thing you want to consider. That's a really powerful move where you can be dealing damage at an earlier phase or initiative phase, which is great. And so here I would pair my close range damage dealing mech, little more armor, still does tremendous amount of damage, with someone like a Mockingbird who kind of toes the line. She has bulwark, so she can sit there when she gets up close and just keep pounding them with the AC-20s. She also has sensor lock. Now, that's going to be challenging, because the reason that I would pair this is that because she does more damage at close range, as she's running in, I might be sensor locking. But once I get close, I'm not going to probably use sensor lock, right? I'm going to focus more on just firing, especially in that early initiative phase. So those are some tips there. Now, I do want to say that in my mind, there are types when we think about the procedural missions, you have 2 types, right? You have the type where you have to eliminate all the mechs. You have the type where you can do whatever you have to do in the mission and then extract, right? Like head to the extraction point and get out and still be successful. When we think about the battle type or eliminating all enemies on the board or on the map type missions, we want to have mechs that have, like I said, lasers on them, right? They don't have to be all lasers, and or more than enough ammo than we could ever think of using, because they will keep coming. I just fought a procedural mission and it had 6 assaults and 2 80-ton tanks, which the tanks are kind of irrelevant once you get smart about it and you blow them up first. But I ran out of LRM ammo, And that was unfortunate because I wanted to do a little more farming, but I couldn't. And that brings me to my next point, right? When we think about those two different types of missions, there's another layer that we want to think about. What is our priority of this mission? And again, I'd break it down to two pieces. There is the C-bill or money and reputation run, and then there's the salvaging run. And that might determine your loadout. So if you're thinking about money and rep and you don't care about salvage on a mission, I would recommend that you bring mechs that are designed to deal a lot of damage as quickly as possible. So you're just blowing up or eliminating enemies as quick as possible. So a good example of that for me would be my Battle Master here. My Battle Master, you see all these medium lasers, you see that he has jump jets, he's as mobile as an assault can get for an 85 tonner, and he has a PPC for long range just as I close the distance, but he is really just a medium laser boat. He can fire these medium lasers without the PPC every single turn without overheating. This is what I call a high damage dealing mech. He can still take a hit. He's got pretty good armor, right? But he is designed to output as much damage as possible. So I'm literally just trying to blow up whatever's in my way, right? It looks like it's not that heat efficient, and that's because of the PPC. If I take the PPC off, he can fire 7 or 6 lasers every single turn. No problem. So that's something to think about. So I would probably bring my Battle Master when I'm doing a C-bill or a rep mission because I'm just looking to output damage. Similarly, I might bring my Awesome on that. Because of my Awesome... Okay, my Awesome isn't built that well right now. 2 PPCs, and he's not that heat efficient. So the better example would be the Battle Master or the Banshee. The Banshee here only has... That's weird. He should have more lasers. Oh, because he's made for melee. So I expect him for melee to get in close and just do laser damage. You see all these small lasers? I can get in and I can alpha, which is fire all my weapons at least twice. And then I can fire, I think, at least all the small lasers, which are doing 20 damage each. So that's 100 consistent damage per turn, right? And he's fairly mobile. So those are the two types of mechs, like all those laser boats you call them, when you're just looking to run through the mission. Now, when you're looking to salvage, and you're looking to bring home that sweet salvage, and build your new mechs or get plus weaponry, you're going to want to take a different tactic. So I refer you to my in my opinion, best in class salvage strategy of incapacitating enemy pilots. When you do that, you're going to want to bring mechs that do a lot of stability damage. So what I've designed here is what I call my ranged Highlander. So I would bring either this Highlander, which has LRM 20, it has some SRM 6s, so missiles to do stability damage, and AC 10 to do more stability damage. Or I might bring my other Highlander, which is over here, right? 2 large lasers for damage, and then 2 LRM 15s. So we're going to be knocking them over consistently, these enemy mechs, and then focusing their torsos, and then also blowing off a leg to knock them over again, right? We can do enough stability damage. These 2 LRM 15s, I'll just show you. This has plus 2 stability damage, plus 2 stability damage. These 2 LRM 15s will fill up an assault mech's stability damage bar. And then you're going to have to hit them with something else to knock them over. Alright? In most cases. Assuming these all hit. Now, if some of them miss, then obviously that bar is not going to fill up. Which sometimes they do. Right? And so here, if I'm looking to do a farming run, what I might do is bring my sniper King Crab, who has LRM 20s too, and I'd work these two in conjunction, right, to knock over the enemy mech. So something to consider. Now, when it comes to mech warriors and pairing them with these types of mechs, I normally do high gunnery. So for example, in this mech, I would probably put a glitch or a Shadowcoast that has the breaching shot, but you also want to be cognizant that you don't want to blow them up, right? You just want those missiles to hit, and when you do strike, you want a precision strike if you're going to deal a lot of damage at the torso to get that extra pilot injury on the enemy. So as a quick aside, to incapacitate a pilot, if you incapacitate an enemy pilot, you then get 3 salvage of that mech, right? So incapacitation is the best way to farm mechs on salvage runs, right? But the number of injuries that it takes to incapacitate a pilot varies. So at the top of each enemy mech, you're going to see a name, Skirmisher, right? So the Skirmisher is a combination of having gunnery and piloting, right? Where a Brawler is a combination of having guts and piloting. Where the Vanguard is a combination of tactics and guts. So these different combinations where they have the expertise and their specialization. So the expertise is the one that has the 2 skill points in it. Your specialization is where you have the 1 skill point. Each of those combinations have a different title, and you can see that title above the enemy mech. So for example, if I see an enemy mech that has Vanguard or Brawler or Defender, I know that I have to knock it down and cause at least 5, most likely more than 5 pilot injuries before they're incapacitated. So if you see something like that, you're probably just going to want to shoot the legs out. And I'm diverging a little bit into salvage. I'm sorry, it's an interesting topic that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. But coming back to pairing pilots to mech warriors, those are a few things that you should consider. I would say on salvage runs, you're going to want to run mechs with a lot more ballistics and missiles to cause stability damage, so you can use that incapacitate route of just knocking the enemy mech over until the pilot is incapacitated, so you get 3 salvage. For missions that you don't care about salvage, I recommend you go with that medium laser spam, because you can just output more consistent damage without overheating if you build your mech right over time, so you can blow through the enemy at a quicker pace. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Please post, let me know your ideas. I will be shooting a second video talking about priority missions, but that'll most likely contain spoilers for different missions, so I didn't want to include that here. These are just high-level general tips that I hope that are helpful. And please post if you like what you hear, you find this useful. Really appreciate a subscribe and a thumbs up. But thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and please, I encourage you to post. I would love to make this content better, and if you disagree with me or anything I said, please post and let me know. I'm not perfect, I'm still improving, and again, this game is designed to play it in so many different ways. So I would love to hear how you guys like to play it, what you think works best, so we can share that with the overall community and make sure everyone enjoys this game, as much as I do. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Have a good one.